All right, peace. This is the God Life for Law Conversations with God. We outside.
All right, man. So first and foremost, how you doing?
I'm doing good, God. Just got back from my homeland in Belize. So all my Belizeans out there, you know what it is. It definitely was good being home with my family. Went out there for a family reunion and some other things I had to do personally with my family and my children. 3 in particular, Destiny, Star, and Justice. And it was good, man. I feel good, and I feel, grateful. You know what I mean? Feel grateful.
Any insights or takeaways? I know normally when you go to the homeland, you get hit with premonitions and things.
Yeah. Definitely. I think the biggest thing is home is where the heart is. You know what I mean? And I felt something differently this time because now I've seen my mother's siblings' children, my aunts and my cousins, and family is something I didn't have coming up per se. I wasn't close to my immediate family, and that really hit home as far as family. You know what I mean? The importance of family and the reality of coming back to home. I'm coming back to a place where you feel appreciated and where you feel needed, not where you're wanted, but where you're needed. You know what I mean? So that was definitely good, and spent a lot of quality time with my babies, 3 of them. Other 3 was missing, but it felt nice, man. It felt nice coming back home to Belize, Yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead.
Thank you for asking, God.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, so a lot's been happening in the news.
Yeah.
So we'll start there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've been able to pay any close attention to the whole Carmelo Anthony situation.
Yeah, with the young brother.
Do you have any thoughts on that whole trial and how everything transpired?
Well, first of all, he was set up from the beginning. Okay, you're dealing with, a situation of justification of self-defense. One word to another word. He was supposed to be in amongst his peers. He wasn't. The prosecutor was very stern on what he wanted or what they wanted to do. The defense could have been a whole lot better. And then they gave this young man 35 years. You know what I mean? So they didn't care about his future. They didn't care about his stance. They didn't care about nothing. But here it is. You have maybe another white person who might have done that. I think it was another young man in the same jurisdiction. He got 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So justice is blind. The system was not meant for us. It wasn't created by us. The laws was not invented by us. And so we have to be mindful about learning the system and knowing how to use it to our advantage, not our disadvantage. And a lot of times, man, you remember prison is big business. It's a business, it's a system, and it's a business. And as we say, Yaqub didn't build prison houses for his people, but yet he built them for somebody. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, man, it's a very expensive thing. People are getting rich from prison houses. You see what I'm saying? So here it is now. They're going to get 35 years of free labor from a young man who had his whole life ahead of him. But because of one mistake or one situation that he did, it cost him his life. You know what I mean? And we don't know what's going to happen to him when he gets on the inside. For all those who've been to prison, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Things happen in prison. Prison is another world. You know what I mean? It has rules and conditions and all of these things that you got to deal with. And if you come in there, with this idea of toughness, thinking that, you can't be tried, you're going to be tried. You know what I mean? And that's what's going to happen to him, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
So, you're a father, you have sons.
Yeah.
What would you have told him ahead of that situation on how he should have handled it?
I think, first of all, sometimes, in this era that we live in, we got a lot of young ninjas out here trying to do more than they should, right? There comes a point where you have to defend yourself. And there comes a point where you have to say, you know what, let me not go that route. Now, if somebody put their hand on you, you got to defend yourself. But remember, you have laws in various states that may be dealing with, the idea of, stand your ground laws. right? We don't know if that jurisdiction had that. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I didn't look into the case as a law student. I didn't look into the case that way. I looked into the evidence and the circumstances surrounding the conviction. But at the end of the day, man, like I tell my son now, you got to be mindful. One decision can cost you your life. Think before you move. Be mindful of the 3 things that every young man should know. Who you deal with as your mate, who you choose and what you choose to do as a career, and who you hang around is going to determine where you're going to end up. And these things are serious, especially now for our young boys. We got to be teaching our young men how to deal with the law, how we deal with circumstances beyond their control, and how to come home safely. Again, sometimes you walk out that door, you don't know if you're coming back. And we see it a lot of times. Something happened with my older son the same way. I don't know if I said that to y'all in the last bill or what we talked about in the last bill, but I remember having a premonition, per se, about my son getting hurt. He called me. I'm telling him, yo, be careful. 5 hours later, his mother calls me and tells me he got shot. Twice. You know what I mean? This is my oldest son, Malik. You know what I mean? So, take heed to the warnings that we brothers, older brothers, fathers give y'all. We're only saying it because we can see things that y'all can't see. And the wolves is out there right now. You got a lot of white people out there, thinking that they can go the extra mile with black folks. We got black folks going out there doing things that they ain't supposed to be doing. And the things that they should be doing, they need to be doing more of. So it's a lot of things that's going on right now, man. So the things I probably would have advised, my kids or him, was to be careful how you move. If somebody does attack you, you have a right to defend yourself, but make sure that you defend yourself in a way that makes sense. And in the heat of the moment, what makes sense? Anything is bound to happen, right? Sometimes, death does occur in defending yourself,
Okay. All right. So, ATF.
Yeah, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. We're going to start there.
The first episode just dropped.
Yeah.
Before you give a review of the episode, what was your thoughts on the interview that went down with Infomega?
First of all, again, all peace to Infomega. Infomega, has a very different approach in how he interviews. To me, should have been a little bit more stern and direct when it came to those questions. This brother, I am powerful. I don't know the brother. I never met the brother before, never spoke to the brother. I just seen him on that interview and seen him from these clips that he's doing with this project ATF. Honestly, God, I didn't appreciate what I saw in that interview. And let me explain that. Even if the God is watching, let me explain what I'm talking about. And I'm going to think before I say what I'm going to say, because once I say it, as we all know, it's out there, right? There comes a point where when a person is asked if you care about this nation and you care about the politics and you care about the outcome and the consequences, then there should be a concern about how you do things. There should be a concern about what you say and how you say it. Right now, this brother, I think, got knowledge in the 90s, for what I can understand from the interview, if I remember correctly. I think it was 97 that he got knowledge. From who, I don't remember off the top of my head. But it's interesting is that, for those who got in the second decade of this nation, we had a certain sternness about us, a certain code that we live by, right? I got my knowledge in 81, as I shared in the last bills. And there were certain things that God used to tell us about knowing when to say, how to say it, and when not to say nothing, right? There's a time and place for everything. And sometimes wisdom out of season bears no fruit, right? As the saying goes. This interview that he did with Infomega revealed a lot, right? To me, from doing the knowledge to it, right? Because first you got to do the knowledge, as we all know. Today is, knowledge. So when you acknowledge a man's knowledge, and you hear what a man speaks when he comes out of his mouth, if he's not mindful, going to reveal exactly where he's coming from and where he wants to go. Notice what I said, where he's coming from and where he wants to go, right? To me, this was not about the nation. This was not about the greatest story never told. This was about a brother, maybe some sisters, maybe those in Kentucky. They want to put Kentucky on the map. You know what I mean? Saying that I did it first. It had to be done. Well, this story is one of those stories you don't just put out there. First of all, Allah is nothing artificial about Allah the Father, right? We're dealing with artificial intelligence. As I like to say, how is anything artificial intelligent? You know what I mean? First of all, we got brothers and sisters who walk with Allah, who was there in the early days. They should have been very intricately a part of the program as far as being influenced. I'm quite sure some of the first 9, as it relates to who is still here, would have some reservations about this project. There was some who are open about the project. There's some who are closed-minded about the project. Matter of fact, what I'm saying, there's some who didn't even want the project to be done, which I can understand, because after looking at the episode, despite what anybody else got to say, it's all over the place, right? You start off with, having a young boy running down the beach, a white man talking about how he's monkeys, and a white woman talking about go save him, whatever the case may be. It just didn't give me what I thought would be the first episode, right? Now, me knowing Allah's history from the bomb and from various books and being around brothers who was with Allah and all that, that first episode tells the tale of the tape. It's like anything else. The first presentation or observation you get will tell the tale. I'm interested to find out what the other 9 is going to reveal. I'm interested to see that. But, again, we ain't taking nothing away from the God's intent, but it seemed like it was more of self-grandizement as opposed to how would it impact the nation. How will it, enforce what Allah taught? Right now, it's talking about, him in his early stages of being in the mosque and studying the student enrollment and Dora, and it just, I don't know, 20 minutes ain't enough to reveal Allah's truth. And more importantly, the storyline seemed like it was very choppy in my mind. And that's just my opinion, right? I'm quite sure everybody, have their own opinion of how they draw it up, But like I said, it's coming from where I come from, the root, and coming from the people that taught me, I would have never thought I would see something like that. Because in my mind, even from the little footage that we got of Allah and the pictures that I received and the Otisville interview, I don't see Allah that way. You know what I mean? I don't idolize the Father. I pay respect and homage to what he did and who he stood for. And when I say who he stood for the realization of an active mind. You know what I mean? He stood for what was right, despite many who thought what he did by revealing this knowledge to us at that time was wrong. You know what I mean? But I don't see that him should be depicted as an avatar, and I don't see that he should be depicted on what they think the story should be, because that is not the actual story in my mind. From what I have learned over the years, that's not his story per se. And the disclaimer said these are from true events. Well, how would you know if you wasn't there? How would you know if you didn't get, the information from those who were there? So yeah, it's a lot to it, God. I didn't even like the title. ATF, as I said, the first thing that popped in my mind was alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Now, did Allah drink a little alcohol? Yeah. He had a little sip on gin and juice, you know what I mean? Did he have a little smoke? You know what I mean? As we all heard, he had a cigarette in his hand at the towers, and some Muslim brother walked in and said, "What are you doing smoking?" Yeah, he had a little smoke, you know what I mean? And then he got hit with firearms. You know what I'm saying? He got shot, right? So that's the first thing that came to my mind. You know what I mean? When I saw that ATF, What, you know what I mean? So, although the breakdown of law of the father, I get it, but the first thing that came to my mind was that. You know, so yeah, I don't think that and again, this is me. I don't think that it was positioned right in terms of how. I think it was rushed, and I think that it could have been dealt with another way, because this is a very sensitive project and it's a very sensitive subject matter, because a lost story is a real one because it changed so many people's lives all around the world. So you don't play with that. You don't play games with that. And from the looks of it, this looks like this is more of a me, as opposed to we. And I'm not speaking French for those who speak French out there.
Okay, that's peace. So, what if you were in a position to be an executive producer or a director?
Yeah.
Project. Someone put some money on the table for you to put a project together. What approach would you have taken, or would you take to putting together a project? Would it be AI? Would it be live action? Would it be a movie, series?
It would be probably live action, real people. It wouldn't have been an avatar. It wouldn't be taking a person's voice and then putting together the image of a person and making it seem like that's them. No, it would be live. You know what I mean? I probably would have done it at a law school or in various places, you know what I mean, that shows you the dynamics of what this brother, this man did. I think another thing I probably would have done is I would have gotten a lot of the brothers and sisters, those that were still here, those that might have gone into the mosque who knew Allah, and used that as a point of reference and had more of a documentary type of interview with them to tell the story of Allah. You know what I mean? I would have done that. I would have looked at, you got some Muslim brothers right now that had a relationship with Allah. You know what I mean? When he was in the mosque, they're more prone to tell the story than someone who may have not taken everything, you know, and maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Who knows? Like I said, I don't know who this brother is. You know, I've never met him before in my life. You know what I'm saying? I've been around quite some time, and I know a lot of gods and earths out there, and they know me. So again, like I said, my approach would have been a little bit differently. But again, all due respect to the brother who strived to tell the story, but I just think it could have been a little bit better, especially with that first episode.
That's decent. All right, so what are your thoughts? Oh, okay, so I'll just start like this.
Yeah.
How do you define the earth?
You know, I appreciate that question. First of all, the earth, right? You know, the earth is very, very three-dimensional. And why do I say it's three-dimensional? You know, there's many ways you can define an earth. Now, from our way of life, we say that the earth is a black woman. But remember, I said that she's a woman first. In the last bill, I said there's stages to this woman. I said 5 stages, just like there's 5 steps in that first degree in student enrollment. So now she's the woman. You're going to go through that wisdom stage with her. She's going to test you. And then should she be ready, willing, and able, then you make her, you know, the earth. So the earth is defined as being the black woman, but it's also a place we call home, right? Earth is home. It's a planet. Notice the key word there, plan it. You don't just get with a woman just because. You got to have a plan with her and make sure that that plan has a lot of things in it in order to keep her, right? The 14th degree speaks about how to keep a husband. Well, we got to know how to keep a earth. We got to know how to keep a woman. We got to know there's certain things that keep her in place. Because remember, she's going counterclockwise, right? She's going on a wobble, as I said in the last bill. She's going, you know, in different dimensions on her own mind, you know, going all over the place. So she has to be stabilized in order to, you know, maximize her natural, you know what I mean, how to say, her natural way. You know, she's unnatural to her natural self. And this is why we have to make sure that when we say that we own her It's not that we own her in terms of property. We own her as it relates to the responsibility that we have with her. So how do I define the earth? As a black woman who's culturally refined, who understands her role and responsibility as it relates to her and her God and her children and her ability to carry on and to be the home that we live on and that we build on and that we build with,
So can a woman come into the nation, right?
Yeah.
Get knowledge of herself.
Yeah.
Does that make her the earth?
No.
What would she be?
She'd be a civilized woman first.
Queen.
Yeah, as I said in the last bill, again, there's a sequence of events that takes place when you're teaching a woman, right? A lot of times a man with knowledge, right? First of all, women are drawn to three things. They're drawn to the man's, physical, oh, he looked nice, he's handsome. If he has a mind of his own, she's now drawn to the stimulation of how he draws her up mentally. Then she's drawn to what is he doing, right? She wants that status or status. She wants that idea of that's my man. She want to brag about this man, right? But at the same time, she got to bring something to the table so that we can eat. You know what I'm saying? She got to bring something to the table. Now, what is that? We say she got to bring something to the table. Does that mean that she has to be educated? No, she has to have education of herself. She has to know who she is. Now, I want to get back to the question that you just posed, which was what?
First question?
Yeah, no, the one right now. You just gave me a question. I want to make sure I don't go far left.
No, so I was just saying, if a woman gets knowledge of herself,
yeah,
does that make her the earth?
No. You got a lot of women that understands who they are as black women. That doesn't make them the earth. The earth is a title given to a woman who has the knowledge of 120 lessons, okay. Right? Has the knowledge.
So she could come, get the knowledge of herself.
Yes.
Go through 120.
Right.
Now she's the earth.
No, you make her the earth, right?
It's incumbent upon if she's with God or not.
Without question. Now, she could be a civilized woman taught by another earth, right? Is she the earth symbolically? Yes, from that side. But who is she the earth to? Right? Who is she the earth of? Well, who is she representing? When she says, my name is so-and-so, she used to say, I come in the name of whatever of the God that she's with.
I reflect the light
I reflect, right, whatever. Right? She absorbs, she reflects, and she adds on, right? Whatever the case may be. Does that necessarily make her the earth? No. First of all, the earth has to have something to rotate around, right? Which is normally the sun, right? Now, if she's not rotating around the sun, who is she rotating around? Or what is she rotating around? You know what I'm saying? And then why is she rotating around it if it ain't the sun? Then what is it then? So these are the things that we gotta be mindful of when we say that's my earth. Everybody everybody is not prepared to take on that responsibility as being someone's earth. Just like saying, well, that's my God. Well, that's a lot to come with that when she says that. That's my God over there. You know what I mean? Well, okay, how is he your God? Just because he's teaching you? No. So again, a woman who get this knowledge, right? The first step in giving knowledge that she got to learn how to be civilized. That comes with refinement, right? Refinement is a cleanup process, right? Because women got to be cleaned up just like the gods got to be cleaned up. You don't just become God overnight. As I said in the last bill, in that student enrollment, God is last in that bill. You got to be the maker, the owner, the cream, and then he becomes a father, then he becomes a God. Same thing like a woman, right? She don't become earth just so she started reading some lessons and now she the earth. No, she's a woman's going through the study at that time. Civilized woman, right? A civilized woman got to know how to act at home and abroad, not be abroad half dressing like some of y'all out there that I keep seeing, okay, right?
That was my next question.
Good segue.
So is 3/4 a requirement for sisters in this nation?
It is a requirement, just like brothers need to be dressed accordingly to what he say he is, right? So you see a brother, I like dressing in suits. Sometimes I like dressing in bow ties and ties because it's a presentation, right, that you're giving someone. First, do the observation. Is how does a brother or sister look? They say they God and earth. Well, they looking like trash. They looking like they came from the homeless shelter, right? So presentation is everything. Is it a requirement to have a woman in 3/4? It is a requirement based upon how she respects herself and how the God respects her just as well. The purpose of 3/4, right, is to make sure that women are, respected. People are not looking at them for their body parts, right? You see, I'm gonna tell you, I love to see a woman with a headdress and, dress on, culturally grounded in her fashion. That's a turn on for me, right? And that goes with any woman as far as, as far as the black woman's concerned. When I see that lets me know that she's very conscious of what she's doing, and she's very presentable in how she's presenting herself to the world, right? So that's number one. It's a requirement that when a God takes on and start teaching his woman to be his earth or to be his student or whatever it is he's choosing to do, is to make sure he understands where that's coming from, right? And sharing with her, not to try to get in her pants, but sharing with her why is it important that she don't do it with being underdressed. You know what I mean? Underdressed bring problems. It brings a lot of problems. Some of y'all women out there got your tits out, your ass out, and wondering why y'all be called bitches. Wondering why people don't respect y'all. You got these eyelashes that look like, I don't know, wings from birds, you know what I mean? Flying everywhere. And that's no disrespect if that's what you want to do, but I can't deal with nothing fake. I'm not with the fakeness. That's why it's hard for somebody like me, because, some of these women, they can't handle a man that's going to tell them, hey, take that bullshit off. You know what I mean? Be natural. And that's the most beautiful thing that a woman can be, is natural. Right. You ain't got to put up all this makeup on your face to, be dressed up, looking like a clown in somebody's circus in order to be accepted. No, be yourself. But you don't know how to be yourself because no one's teaching you that. Yeah. Right? You think being yourself is, I got to dress like every night with these 20-inch nails, you know what I'm saying, that you got on, and this fake attitude, fake, hair, fake eyelashes, fake tits, fake ass. Everything's about fake, but you want somebody real in your life. You know what I mean? It's just crazy, God. But again, this is no disrespect to the women out there. This is just saying that 3/4 is a requirement under the study of being refined and making sure that you understand the cultural reality of the I God mindset. And the I God mindset, let me make sure you understand what that means. I God don't mean individual. It means God and earth of intelligence, right? Using a conscious intelligence that you say that you are aware of and applying that to your life. You should want to look a certain way so you could be respected a certain way and to carry yourself a certain way that's dignified and divine, as it relates to being a righteous people. You know what I mean? And that's just my take on it. And that's how I was taught. Now, does everybody comply to that? No. And that's why they don't get the results that they are looking for. You can't get respect if you don't respect yourself. And you sure can't get the respect in this world when you out half underdressing, thinking that that's going to draw somebody to respect you. That ain't going, give you nothing but more problems, And a lot of times, what that brings is the unfortunate, negative, toxic people who's about that around you. And sometimes that shit is not something that I condone in this nation at all. I think that when a woman gets knowledge and she starts to learn about who the black man is, who she is, and who she's supposed to be in terms of her personal development, she's supposed to carry herself in a certain way. You know what I mean? And 3/4 is only symbolic to say that she's approximately covered under proper water, which is wisdom, which is guidance. That's all it is saying, hey, I'm guiding you to make sure that you're protected, respected, not neglected.
She understands her culture.
And she understands, she got to know her culture. She got to live her culture out so she could get an understanding of why that culture is so important to her. But if the God is not revealing that and he's not producing those type of, results, what is she seeing? She's got mixed signals. You know what I mean? So she doesn't know how to carry herself. And then another thing that I've noticed over the years, You have a young earth or a young sister walking into this, and you got earths and sisters that's into giving them negative energy. You know what I mean? Or talking bad about them, or feeling some type of way because they're younger than you, or they, you know what I mean, they're more beautiful than you, and you ain't giving them the proper guidance. You're wrong for that. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have no prejudices against a young sister who's trying to find a way, and your job as a big sister is supposed to show them the right way and what an earth should be, or what a woman who's refined should be. You should have no negative issues when it comes to a young sister trying to find her way. You should be there to teach her and show her the right way, and how to be, from a girl to a woman, and then how to be a woman that's culturally grounded. That's just something that they put on me as a young man, coming into this nation. That's important. So that's how I draw it up, God, to be honest.
All right, so speaking of, say, a newborn sister coming around, and how some brothers get when new.
Yeah, they get a little reactive to what they're seeing.
How should a newborn be handled? Specifically, a sister coming around who's, genuinely just trying to learn.
First of all, she should be handled with a sense of care, right? She's fragile at that moment. She's vulnerable at that moment because she doesn't know what to expect. Any brother, I don't care who you are, right? I don't care how long you've been around. I don't care what you think you know. When you're dealing with a young woman who's learning, or a young man who's learning, these young brothers and sisters looking for the proper guidance by being an example of what God and earth should be, right? And that should be a protected mindset. You shouldn't be trying to use young women to take advantage of them sexually, which most do, right? That I've seen over the years, that I've had young brothers come to me, "Yo, God, why is this?" Or young sisters come to me, "Yo, God, why is this?" Again, we understand that brothers got a lot of knowledge, and then they use that to draw these young women up for the wrong reasons, get them pregnant, start abusing them, start doing all types of things. Now, let's be clear about something, right, about that. There is no book that we have other than common sense on how you should treat a newborn. There was never a book given to me that, okay, here's the indoctrination of a newborn. We know that that person got to go through a rites of passage. Fasting for 3 days, making sure that he or she reads and studies and be around others that can guide them right. You as an educator, and y'all should know this, as an educator, have a full responsibility with that newborn, right? Meaning that you got to make sure that he or she is aware of what's going to happen as they get into this, right? I know I tell a lot of those that I've shared over the years, be mindful of those that you come around in this. Be mindful of who you around, period. You know what I mean? So yeah, there is a certain way that you should deal with a newborn. They are very sensitive because they are the future of this nation, right? They are the next wave of what this nation can be. And if you don't treat them right, or at least show them right, how is it going to be right in the hereafter? It's not going to be right. And right now we have a lot of things that's not right. When it comes to newborns, some newborns are turned off by what they see. Some newborns are turned off by what they hear. Some newborns are actually dissatisfied once they come to find out that, okay, so now after I got this knowledge, now what? Well, what happens now? Well, what happens is what you make happen is what's going to happen now. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of things that we got to deal with when it comes to newborn. But the first thing, like I said, God, is making sure that you are the real example of what a true living God and a true living earth should be when you're dealing with a newborn. Now, of course, we all have our own vices, including me. Let's not get it twisted out there. Like I said, I've made mistakes coming up. I did things that I shouldn't have done with people, you know what I mean? And I paid the price for that, right? Penalty, right? Justice, right? But at the end of the day, you show up to grow up, and then you realize, okay, these are the things I had to go through. I had to go through that trial and tribulation to understand better. But when it comes to a newborn, I don't take that shit lightly. I take that shit serious. And I don't rush to give them nothing. I watch them, I study them, I ask questions about where they're coming from so we can know where they want to go. And then I give them the right guidance to take them there. You know what I mean? And that's how I would draw that up, God, as far as I get that answer to you.
Okay. So when someone gets the knowledge of themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Say, okay, they're struggling with certain things in their life.
Mm-hmm.
They get the knowledge of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What should they expect, or not even expect, but what, once you get the knowledge of yourself,
mm-hmm.
what should you see in a person as far as the transformation goes?
Change, of course. Change is very, very evident that when you get this knowledge, you should not be, if you got it right and if you're studying right and if you're applying it right, you should never see the habitual person that you was when you get this knowledge. You should be now moving in areas that's going to put you in a better place. We talked about this the other day. When brothers and sisters get this knowledge, they never talked about, how you should use mathematical theology to gain things. This is something that they don't know, obviously, because if they did know and it was applied, then we would have better things going on with many people in this, right? One thing I told Sia Kill, peace be upon him, when he first got knowledge was that now that you got 120 lessons the way I taught you, I need you to go back to where the knowledge and wisdom came from. I'm not talking about Mecca, I'm talking about the mosque. I'm talking about the lost found Muslim lessons, the supreme wisdom. Go back to it and use it as a reference point, right? And in that book, the supreme wisdom, there's various things that we don't give newborns, right? And why don't we give it to them? Since the source of the knowledge came from the mosque, you have to now give them the reference to that source so that they can understand what Allah saw. Now, what did Allah see? Right? It was taught in that problem book that you supposed to what? Memorize these lessons. So now he enforced that on us to memorize the lessons. Then in that same problem book, it talks about Islam being mathematics and mathematics being Islam, and you must gain things using mathematical theology. What is that? Theology is the study of God. Mathematics is numbers. So we're dealing with the study of God through math, through the language that we use. And in that same degree, in that same lesson, it talks about gaining fine homes, luxuries and friendships in all walks of life. So we can't alienate ourselves and then think that because we have isolated ourselves, we're going to get somewhere. We got to extend our reach across the aisle, create partnerships in the community with other leaders. They may not have the same mind as us, but they have the same intent, which is to what? Uplift the community. Right? Another thing, right? Allah stressed, as far as what I know from what was taught to me, was learning a trade, getting education, making sure that you take care of yourself, your family, and your community. When you get this education, bring it back. Make sure you share it. Make sure that you give insight, hindsight, and foresight to those who don't have that knowledge. So again, it's critically important, man, that we really do what Allah ordained to do. I'm in school, I'm in law school, and as soon as I finish, Allah willing, I'm going to get that PhD, get that doctorate. You know what I mean? Because that can change my life, but I have to what? I have to use mathematics to get it. I have to use this to better myself. If you got this knowledge, and depending on how long you got it, and you don't see any productivity, you don't see any amount of greatness about you, then something's not right. You didn't use your mathematics right? I don't care if you can quote from here to Egypt, right? That's great, sounds good. But if that quote did not put you in a better position of certainty, and when these young gods and earths, these newborns see you, and they only see you in a position or condition of struggle, that means your mathematics is offline. Okay? It's offline. And there's nothing you can do to justify it. You're supposed to be better in all things, or at least better in your position and condition. Right? And we understand some brothers and sisters caught out there in various sciences. We get it. But you're supposed to master that by leaving it what? Alone. Leave those things alone if it ain't helping you. Leave people alone if they ain't helping you. Leave places alone if it ain't taking you to a better place. You know what I'm saying? And these are things that I advocate, and I advocate it with my own babies. First and foremost, sometimes your family ain't good for you. Gotta leave them alone and love them from a distance. You know, sometimes people in this nation will use mathematics, use the regalia, use all these trinkets and be on some trickery shit. You know what I mean? Trying to trick you with all types of trick knowledge that others taught them. You know what I'm saying? Think they could use that on you. You know what I mean? Using and abusing and taking advantage of people that shouldn't be taken advantage of. You know, these are the things we got to stop doing, especially in this day and time. We don't have time for bullshit and we don't have time to play, right? We gave this devil a grace period. For what? To do what? To continue to do what he does daily? You know what I'm saying? No, we got to get on our shit and we got to stop playing, and we got to make sure that these newborns are prepared for what's coming next, because what's coming next is going to supersede what we just came out of. And a lot of these newborns ain't even ready for it, and you can see it. You know, so yeah, that's how I'd answer it, God. I know that was a little long-winded, but sometimes, God, you know, some of these questions you be posing to me, I had to go deep with it and hope that those that listen to these bills understand where I'm coming from. You know what I mean? But how could you understand where I'm coming from if you ain't been where I've been? You know what I mean? Some of y'all don't know what war is. Y'all think war is Call of Duty and PlayStation. Some of y'all think because y'all had a few, you know, tips and taps that's it. No, man, you got to go through real life situations to understand life in its totality, so that when these young people can come to you for guidance and for some type of leadership, you can provide them with it right. You know what I mean? And I will also say this before we go to the next question. Going back to the newborns out there, those that's getting this knowledge either from this ATF thing or from various books of brothers that wasn't there, sisters that wasn't there, you know what I'm saying? Come back home. Get it from where the knowledge and wisdom was started and founded when Allah came to Mecca, Manhattan, New York City, and learn those who are the primary examples of what it is when it comes to this. Everybody can't teach this, and everybody can't give you the truth about this. So make sure that you get it right and exact, for real, and make sure that the people that's giving it to you is right and exact in terms of their condition, their situation, and their life, because a lot of them is not that. They not right. And unfortunately, they got a lot of students that's getting from brothers who got branch knowledge and they falling off all over the damn place and wonder why they not grounded properly. That's coming from me, Life for Law, I'll let y'all know, right? You know, we take this shit serious. Don't take it for play, because we don't got time for that. So that would be how I draw that up, God, to be honest with you.
Okay, so one of our bills, you know, I asked the question about, you know, what should a teacher look for in a student? Mm-hmm. So what should a student look for in a teacher or someone that's a bigger brother to share knowledge with them?
Yeah, first of all, I'm in a firm acknowledgement that students and teachers come across each other based upon proper alignment, right? I don't look for students. I don't go out there recruiting for students. You know what I mean? 9 times out of 10, they'll see me doing something positive, or they heard about me and they want to get knowledge from me, or they might have heard a bill that I wrote or I said, or, you know what I mean? Or they might have heard me on YouTube from what the God has been doing lately. And yo, I need to talk to that brother Life. You know what I mean? So what should a student look for in an educator? A person who cares. A person who's going to take their time with you and explain things to you. A person who you can see have applied mathematics to his or her life, right? And they are successful in their undertakings, right? A person who lives their creed, one who walks and talks and lives this thing out for real. You know what I mean? Now, how do you do that? You got to be around them to know if they're living it out for real. You got to walk and talk with them to see what they're dealing with. A student should also look for a person who's compassionate about this, who's committed to, you know, the progress of positivity, a person who's willing to go the extra mile now and again for certain things in certain situations that, you know, warrants that. Another thing a student should look for, someone who can ask and answer the question, right? Because the teacher's gonna ask questions just like he or she answers the question. And then the student should always research what's being told to you. Don't take what that educator or that person told you on face value. Ask him or her, where did you get that knowledge from? Or where can I find that? Right? It's important that you ask real questions so you can get the real answer, direct. Another thing that you should look for, right? Find out what this educator's home is like. Find out what his education or her education is like. Do they know a trade? You know, what is that? You know what I mean? Do they have a plan as it relates to the proficiency that we're supposed to have as God's nerve, especially when we get older? You know what I mean? What contributions have they made to the community? What contributions have they made to this nation? Right? I don't go around talking about how many people I taught, and I don't go around talking about what I did. For those who know, they know, because they was there to see it. Right? And that's another thing that's important. Some people want that validation. Yeah, I'm the God, I'm the earth. You know what I did? I taught 1 million students. All right, sounds nice. But where are those 1 million students now? What are they doing? So students have to be, just like anything else, you come to a classroom to ask the teacher questions, to get an answer. So one day you become the teacher. Right? One day you will have students or those that you share this knowledge with and be able to give them the appropriate answer so they can have an appropriate life to live. So that's what the student should be looking for from my point of view. Someone who's caring, compassionate, committed, someone who's dedicated to the reality of this way of life. And again, people get misconstrued in what this way of life is. This way of life is just about being a conscious-minded individual who's very clear about who is she and what they are as God and earth, and is willing to teach you the truth about who the black man and black woman is, and to teach that reality without any hesitation whatsoever. But you can't teach it by lecturing alone. You teach it by showing and proving it. You know what I mean? Showing and proving what you have done. Showing and proving what you've accomplished. Showing and proving what you continue to do until you take your last breath. That's what the student should be looking for, as far as I'm concerned.
One thought I always had, I think I built on this before many years ago, was so, you know, only real interview we got of Allah was, you know, the Otisville one, right?
Otisville tape and that little clip that we got that Victorious got.
Right. In that bill, he built on various different.
Yeah, he did.
As it relates to dietary laws.
Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I always thought about is that was in the 60s.
Yeah.
There were certain foods and things that people were being exposed to in the 60s that were causing them harm and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But in these days and times, those things are still pertinent, but there's a lot of new things that have been introduced to genetically modified things and fake chicken and fake this and fake that.
Laboratory and all that,
Junk food.
Yeah.
So do you feel or think that brothers and sisters in this nation should be updating the lesson as it relates to dietary laws in this day and time to include some of these new things that are causing harm to people in the now?
The dietary laws consist of two areas, mental and physical. So should you be constantly updating? Yeah, you should be always, I just did, as you saw coming into my kingdom, a detox. You know what I mean? You got to detox certain things that I learned, God. We're going to deal with, first of all, the food for thought. I said it comes mental and physical. Dietary law, you know what I mean, it says that there's certain things we should eat and certain things we should not eat, certain things that we should intake and, you know what I mean, not intake. I mean, there's just certain things that you shouldn't do because it could, you know, derail your life. So like anything else, a lot of things that I was taught in the early days, some of them of the things I was taught was not right. So I had to update. Just like a computer updates after every few months, it'll give you a little sign. Okay, you know, we're about to update. Go ahead, you know what I mean? And you press the button, updates the system and gives you more things that you need to discover. Well, it's the same thing with this nation. You got to update a lot of things. Remember the lessons in Lost Files Muslims do say that these things are nearly correct. Nearly. If it ain't completely correct, that means something's off. That means you got to make the correction. So yeah, God, dietary laws are very important when it comes to our preservation of our life and our health. I tell my young God, self, health, and wealth. That's the stepping stones. Self is knowledge, right? Health is wisdom, right? And wealth is understanding how to hit the numbers, right? How do you make sure that you have the resource to survive and thrive? So yeah, dietary laws are very important. Now, Allah said, if you're going to eat meat, eat the best of meats. What was those best of meats?
Back then, it was probably what, halal meat?
Halal meat. Some would say don't even eat chicken. The Bible says you're supposed to be vegetarian. To eat the meat, the trees should be your meat. Right? So we're dealing with vegetation, fruits. But now the fruits have no seeds. Right? So what do you eat then? Right? You got to be mindful about maybe planting your own food. Now you may have to go out and get organic food. It's going to cost you a little bit more, but it's going to cost you more if you continue to eat the poison and in the hospital, right? So sometimes it's necessary to go and eat the organic food or go to a vegan spot that we have gone to a few times, you know what I mean, and eat those foods. Make sure that that's halal. Make sure that's kosher. You know what I mean? Now, of course, some of you like to dibble and dabble on your M&Ms now and again. I get all that, you know what I mean? You want your grape soda, Welch's grape. You know what I mean? You dibble and dabble. But there's a duration, there's a certain amount that you should be intaking, right? Because as you get older, I'm about to be, equality ad, and I got to be mindful how my body responds to food now. How my body responds to knowledge now. I got to be mindful of the data that I'm receiving from the images that I see on TV, from what a brother or sister may tell me, what I'm seeing. All that is food. And if it ain't proper food, what is going to happen to me if I take that? I am what I eat. Right? So you might see me, this is not no sponsorship shit. I'm just saying I'll be drinking my water, right? Or I may be doing my sour sap, turmeric, bitter, toxic detox. Or I may be fruits and vegetables is in my refrigerator, strawberries and grapes and everything. I may have my lettuce. I might have, you know what I mean? I'm trying to make sure that I preserve my life. So dietary laws, God, is a very important step. I have, How to Eat to Live 1 and 2 over there in my archives. Something that Allah, I'm quite sure, was taught when he was in the mosque, right? Don't eat a fish over 50, pounds. You know what I mean? Make sure that if you are going to eat lamb, you know what I mean? Or, eat, broccoli and cauliflower, you know what I mean? Things of that nature, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's important that we take that serious, especially now when things and chemicals and all the stuff is in the atmosphere, it's in our everything that we do. So we have to be mindful of how we preserve ourselves. And then again, watch your body. Your body's gonna tell you when something's wrong, right? The body talks. I know it's been talking to me for quite some time. That's why I go to the hospital. My knee is hurting. It's causing me, I got arthritis in my knee. I got arthritis in my spine because of the things I had to wear and tear in the military. You know what I mean? I got to be mindful eating raw foods because parasites. So I take parasite pills. I'm doing all types of shit to make sure that my body is right. You know what I mean? At this point in my life. So long, story short, yeah, dietary laws are very important, man, and it's important that we follow suit on that, And another thing, you guys out there, don't wait on your woman, to prepare your food. You know what I mean? You should be knowing how to do that. How to take care of home, make sure you know how to cook and clean. You got to do that. So when she comes amongst you, she can see what's expected of her as it relates to how to do that for you and with you. You know what I mean? And if she doesn't know how to cook, teach her how. Teach her how to do it so that she knows how to prepare a meal properly. Because I know we be in the kitchen, me and my young God. And when it comes to one thing, I ain't gonna never have to worry about eating, and I ain't gonna never have to worry about a woman serving me in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? Because I know exactly what I'm gonna eat and what I'm not gonna eat. You know what I mean? So yeah, God. So that's how I would draw that up.
Okay, so I'm over here looking at your albums.
Yeah.
See Jay-Z throwing up.
The Illuminati, right? The eye, yeah.
I don't know if you were able to look at that Roots Picnic?
I did.
What was your thoughts on the freestyle that he did?
I don't think it was necessary. I think that he had an interview where he's saying the beef is uncalled for. Brother, you in your 50s, what are you doing? You're looking like I don't know what with the puff out afro. I understand it. You know, you want to show your diversity and all that. But there comes a point where we can't continue to play the games that the devil wants us to play. You understand? And here it is, you're 50, pushing 60, and you're talking about other rappers.
They're still talking about stabbing someone that was from...
Yeah, you're talking about and okay, we know you stabbed. Okay, do you need validation because you stabbed somebody? I don't get that, you know what I mean? Over a woman, Charlie Baltimore, right? All right, so once again, you're showing the 85% mentality. Now, you had the nerve to put on our flag at one time. And you've been influenced by some of the gods and earths out there. So then prove that. You don't gotta go low and go, beneath the surface measure in order to get validated. You've been away from quite some time. I mean, was your show nice? Okay, it was good, man. Coming from a veteran music executive, I could appreciate, the show and the Roots Picnic, and I can get all that. But all that back and forth, and you're talking about this this rapper, I should say, that's unnecessary, man. You ain't got to do that. It's probably best that you didn't do any of that. Now, if you want to do a little freestyle to show that you still got skills, great. But you ain't got it. You ain't got to stoop to that level, man. You supposed to be beyond that. Remember, you're the billionaire, hip hop mogul who unfortunately, showed your true colors when you went against your man, Dame. Yeah. Right? To me, loyalty. Let me just say this, man. I got this thing, man, that I've always I lived with even as a young man. There was a brother named Shorty Black in my neighborhood, part of the farmers crew. Peace be unto him, he's gone now. And many others, Divine and Freddie Love. And these are brothers from Farmers Boulevard, where I was taught by them as a young man. And the one thing that they taught me to always remember is code. What is that code? The code for me, from what I was taught, you don't talk about nobody in the sense of, trying to, you don't need to do that. They're going to be revealed sooner or later anyway, right? You hold your ground, you stand your ground, you be a man, and you be wise about how you move and how you operate as a man, right? Now, these are things we was taught by brothers who did it right and did it the best when they was doing it. When you got somebody like Jay-Z, based upon his status in the world of entertainment, that the guy to go on a stage to talk about other rappers, it shows you where we still have not grown from. It kind of shows you again, what was the purpose of the contradiction? You said one thing, you did something else. Remember I talked about the double-sided man in the previous bill. You got to be mindful of this. We ain't taking nothing away from Jay-Z's creative reality, but he's a man, or at least supposed to be. And you're not supposed to be doing all that, man. You're supposed to be an example of what happens when you as a rapper or as an entertainer goes to another level. There's a certain standard you're supposed to have, a certain standard you're supposed to live by. You know what I mean? And it's a certain way that you're supposed to carry yourself. Now, many people, life, you was in the entertainment game. I'm still doing entertainment. Maybe not at the levels I was doing it, working at labels and all that. But anyone who's ever worked with me, who knows me in that game, knows I'm about three things. Loyalty, mission, orientation in terms of handling your business, and professionalism. No one in the game of entertainment can ever say life did this and life did that, life did some sneaky weirdo shit, and never. They can never say it because it never happened. They can never say that I wasn't a professional. I just had my Warner Brothers reunion the other day, and I met a lot of my friends who I worked with over the years in the game of entertainment, and some that I really didn't care for, to be quite honest. Because they did a lot of snake shit, and you know who you are. You know what you are, and you know why you are, for whatever reason you did those things for those people who do those things out there. But I felt proud that I could walk into a place and have people say, I remember your name, I remember you, I remember, seeing your name everywhere. You was everywhere. I remember that. That to me is honor because I did it right. You know what I mean? And I think in closing to that situation with Jay-Z and that Roots picnic, it was a great situation. I appreciate it, but what he did, he didn't have to do that. Unnecessary. For what? To do what? I didn't see the point in that, and it goes again to show you how the 85s think, right? Remember, 85s are hard to be led in the right direction. You know what I mean? So you're supposed to be at a certain stage of professionalism. You don't see seasoned entertainers do that type of shit. You don't see that. You know what I mean? So why are you doing that? Show that you've grown up in this. And despite your decisions and what you did with Dame and what you did with, Biggs and all them, and you turned your back on them, whatever, don't turn your back on the up and coming artist who needs to know how to be a professional, how to do things right.
I think that's a pretty interesting symbol for a lot of different other aspects of, our culture, quote unquote, the culture. I don't want to say our culture, but the culture. People throw that term around. Where it's like the elders or the older people and the younger people are still very much the same in how they conduct themselves. There's no real evolution that I'm seeing for people who as they age. I say people get older, but they don't grow up. You know what I mean? So from a maturity standpoint. So it's like they people wonder why the youth don't respect the old, but I think a part of it has to do with that. I
would agree with you 100%. I think the old is trying to come down to the youth level. You was there already. You had your moment to be young.
Right.
There's a reason why we get older. There's a reason why that we have a certain stance that we take when we become older men and women. There's a reason why we get gray hairs, right? There's a reason why that we can't do the shit that we used to do just to be doing it because everybody else is doing it. I can't stoop to a young ninja's level. I'm a motherfucking samurai. Do you understand that? Right? I'm a samurai, okay? I'm not a young ninja, so I'm not gonna do what young ninjas do. Right? But I think there's a responsibility that comes with, trying to fit in, trying to still be, celebrated and validated. You had your moment, right? And if you didn't take the moment for what it's worth, then move out the way so that the youth can have their moment, but give them the right guidance. Yeah. A lot of these youth, man, they don't want to hear a lecture. See, back in my day, we wanted to hear the lecture. We wanted to hear somebody tell us something. The other day I was watching, old films from our professors, John Henry Clark and Francis West, about the whole genetic annihilation and the whole, and these people are gone now, but we have them in film. We have them. And everything they said back then in the early 80s when they were still on the scene is still valid now. Today is even more prevalent today. And I look back to them, I had that opportunity to be around that. A lot of these young brothers and sisters don't have people that's really giving them the meat and the potatoes that they need to sustain and understand that you're not gonna be young forever. One day you're gonna have to realize that your age, meaning your age, not how old you are, your age of how your mind operates, have to go into a place where it needs to operate correctly. You see what I'm saying?
The interesting part of that is that I don't think people are realizing that everything that you record on your phone and put in the atmosphere
stays there
forever. So
right, perpetuity, right? Man, yeah.
In your 20s doing all this silly stuff, and then now 40
years later, look at the situation with 50 Cent's woman, right? is out there, right, doing craziness, right?
Right.
She claims, oh, I didn't know, and you knew, and you knew you was being recorded, but you didn't care. You didn't care. Now, he claimed, oh, he don't care if she screws a dog, but wait a minute, you screwed her then, knowing that that's what she was on, and then she had your seed, which shows you again, right? Are you even thinking, right? If you know this is the type of woman that's doing this, why would you plant your seed in that? You know what I mean? Now that young boy, his young son, Sai, I believe his name is, kind of like the same thing with Kim Kardashian and doing all this flimsy, whimsy crap out there and thinking that's honorable, thinking that's respect. That shit shows you a hoe. Now, when that young man, your young son, you women out there who like to do all that craziness on for content, when you get older and that footage is out there, you know what I mean, and you look back and your children look at that, you know how they gonna see you?
I just can imagine your kid being in high school and one of his friends says, "Isn't this your mom?" Pulls the video up. And
she out there wilding. They just showed me, I seen some young woman with her down in San Diego tweaking. Twerking, tweaking. Yeah, like what are you doing?
She was tweaking.
Tweaking, twerking, jerking, whatever you doing. What type of, this should go, listen, we have to be mindful. Me and the God was building this the other day. We in the last days where people are just boastful. They have no respect. They don't have no regard for nothing, right? But remember, what comes around goes around. We only repeating everything that happened before. There's going to be a sweet cleanse coming soon. We ain't talking about, the water is going to cover and Moses' Ark. We're going to get on, you know what I mean? And float across the ocean and end up in Turkey somewhere. We talking about the earth is going through an enormous change. It's going through what we call a rebirth, regeneration. It's going through some real shit. I'm talking about the actual earth. And those inhabitants on the earth is starting to feel it.
It's kind of when you were building on cleansing.
Yeah.
When you do a cleanse, a lot of times you're going to feel worse before you feel better.
Oh, man.
So it seemed like that's what's happening with the earth right now.
Yeah. It's cleansing itself because, remember, the earth has a frequency. It has a heartbeat. If you ever look at the resonance of the earth's beat, it's the same as your heart. So what's going on with us is going on the earth. We got to get cleaned up. We can't be, listen, man, the stuff that we're doing out here for content and for numbers and for algorithms and all this nonsense, you gotta stop it, man. You gotta stop that because that image, the image that you're portraying is not a healthy one. And it continues to put us in a position of uncertainty as a people. And it puts us in a position that we have no respect for ourselves, no regard for us. So look what they did the other day with the Knicks game. People tearing up, people beating them up because they got a Spurs shirt on. I wish one of you would beat me up. You know what I mean? I'm gonna shoot the shit out you. Yeah. I'm gonna have to, pull out on you. You know what I mean? For doing dumbness, right? And of course, hand to hand is good too, right? But again, I'm just saying with these type of behaviors, being, uncivilized and savage-like and all that, we gotta stop it, man. We gotta stop that because that's not who we are. That's society.
I saw a horrible video where there's this dude who, his whole thing, he goes around kissing bald head men on their head. And then,
notice my face?
You know what I mean? And then recording the reaction. So it's an older man on the train, minding his business. Dude goes over, kisses him on the head. So the old man wilds out and starts swinging.
Without question, you violated his space and his manhood. What the fuck you kissing me on my bald head for?
But then dude gets mad because the old man swung on him and starts beating the old man up. Nah,
you can't do that. Well, again, self-defense, but you triggered it.
That's what I'm saying.
Listen, man, mental health, and we're going to speak on that bit. Mental health at this point in time is nothing to play with. People's temperament is very limited. Their patience is very minuscule. It was very short. You don't know what a person went through that day or going through at that moment. one dumb shit you do. I remember there's this Spanish guy. I don't know what his name is. He's on YouTube. He go, he'll look at you a certain way.
Yeah, you go to Home Depot.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know what he's been doing lately, but he's been doing it. You know what I mean? Yo, what you saying? And he's doing all this stuff. Yo, bro, do you realize you can get killed for the wrong look?
Yeah.
Because people feel like you threatening them with their look. I'm not saying keep your head down on some sucker shit, but you got to be careful with what you're doing out here, man.
Just for some views and some likes and some...
Man, listen, fuck those views, fuck those likes. Excuse me for the young people listening, man. Screw all that view and like shit. See, I don't come from that era where we had likes and views. You know what I mean? I don't come from that, so none of that shit affects me. You know what I mean? It affects them because, again, I think a lot of these young people, they need validation. They need somebody to say, I'm here. I don't come from that era.
No matter what, at what cost.
Yeah, like they got right. They gotta have the superficial certification to feel I'm alive. I've never done that, and I don't come from that era. We didn't have that type of mentality where I gotta get liked in order to be accepted for who I am. Nah, what the fuck?
Right.
Yeah, but
people who are liking really don't like you.
They don't like nothing. They don't even know you.
Acting a fool, and
it's entertainment. Right. I don't like, you know what I mean? No, there's a lot of shit that I don't like. There's some shit I be seeing, that shit is funny as hell. But do I even know you? No.
Right.
I don't know you from a can of paint. You know what I mean? Yeah, God.
Okay. All right. Good, Bill. Any closing thoughts?
I think we have, as my statement said, embrace the moment, man. Embrace the things that, you have to do to get yourself better. I appreciate this conversation with God because we talked about a few things that are going on relevant right now. And again, this is just my opinion from my observation. Some of y'all out there, in the last conversation with God, made some comments about, I saw one that says, oh, that's why I don't deal with the gods and earths because they confused. Ain't nothing confused about us, man. What's confusing is that there's a lot that you haven't learned and haven't discovered, right? And when you discover this knowledge, it puts you in a better position. Again, truth, as I said, in a world of lies is not popular, right? Because you got a lot of people who don't want to own up to what's responsible, you know what I mean? And what is the degree of truth? Now you would say, well, what, truth is truth. No, truth is absolute. There's no dispute in the truth, you know what I mean? Like what I have on my shirt here. The black man's God. That's the truth, right? Now, who accepts it, it's who's accepted. But that's the truth of the matter. Now, what do I mean when I say that? People think, oh, you're supposed to be the person that be bowed to. No, I have governance over my decisions. I have governance over my direction, where I'm going. I have governance over my dominion, what I own and what I created. That's God. You know what I'm saying? So again, man, I think this is important. I think there should be more conversations with gods and earths that's talking about real things. We've seen a lot of podcasts out there talking about superficial stuff. Nah, we ain't, I don't want to talk about nothing superficial. I want to talk about things that are official, not artificial. So you had this live. This is not an avatar, right? You're dealing with a real person, true and living, breathing. Right? Not some person using voiceovers and using an avatar in my image and AI. No, right? We got to be intelligent people, man. And we got to deal with things that are really official and really things that are going to make things happen. Now, here's one thing I will say. Those of you out there who are using this knowledge as a shield to get praise, you don't need to do that if you're doing this with sincerity. If you say you care, if you say that you about this, if you say that you concerned about the future, then be the example to the youth and support those who are doing it right and exact. That would be my commentary in closing.
I have one quick last thought.
Yes.
Show and Prove coming up this
Yeah, this weekend. Show and Prove. Peace to the gods and earths at home and all around.
Harriet Tubman, right?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's not gonna be at the Harriet Tubman. I don't know the exact location off the top of my head. But again, Show and Prove is just not a place you go. Show and Prove is wherever you at. You know what I mean? We commemorating Allah's return home on June the 13th. The 13th man, right? As some would say. Knowing and understanding that the master is still here in all of us who's mastering what we have to do, right? Which is our job. Our job is to teach by being an example. Not just being a lecturer, but being an example of what a righteous man and woman should be doing, and that's important. So yeah, we're up against it, the show and prove, and every day, it's about showing and proving your existence and being a better person, a better man, a better woman, so you have a better reality and a better outcome, despite what the devil does daily.
Okay. Peace.
Peace.